All right, we're back for another Monday Fun Day, and this week we're talking about gerunds. And so let's just get to it. A gerund is a verbal that acts as a noun, and by this time we've talked about all three types of gerunds now. We talked about infinitives, we talked about participial phrases, and so gerund would be the third type of verbal. And remember, a verbal is a phrase that is a verb, but it acts as something other than a verb in a sentence. So examples of sentences with gerunds: running is great exercise, and most people enjoy eating. Okay, so if we look more closely at these sentences, running is being used as the subject of the first sentence, so it's a noun, and eating is being used as a direct object. People enjoy what? Eating. So if it's being used as a direct object, that means that it's a noun. So in this case, the gerund is not functioning as a verb in a sentence, which is why running and eating are not verbs. Okay, so see if you can identify the gerunds in these sentences. Talking is a disruptive activity. My son loves playing with his toy dinosaur, and the doctor gave studying all of his attention. You're looking to see if you can find any words that are ordinarily verbs, but that are functioning as nouns in the sentence. Okay, these are what you should have come up with. Talking is the subject of the first sentence, and playing is the direct object of the second sentence, and studying is the direct object of the third sentence. Okay, so a gerund phrase consists of a gerund, which is the word that's ordinarily the verb, but it's functioning as a noun. So it consists of a gerund plus all the other words, any other modifiers that are included, like objects, complements. So here's an example. A sentence might say, you might get in trouble for faking an illness to avoid school. So faking an illness to avoid school is the gerund phrase, and just to show you what the gerund phrase is comprised of here, faking is the gerund, and illness is the direct object of the phrase, what is being faked, and to avoid school is an infinitive phrase that's being used as an adverb. Okay, so in this particular gerund phrase, it's made up of a gerund, a direct object, and an infinitive phrase. Okay, so gerunds function as nouns in 4 different ways, similar to what we talked about with infinitives. Remember, infinitives could also function as nouns, but infinitives could function as adjectives and adverbs also. So participial phrases are verbals that just function as adjectives, and gerund phrases are verbals that just function as nouns. So they can be the subject, direct object, the predicate nominative, or the object of the preposition. Okay, so here's an example of a gerund as the subject of the sentence. Finding a needle in a haystack would be easier than what we are trying to do. So finding is the gerund, a needle is the direct object, and in a haystack is a prepositional phrase. So all those together make the gerund phrase, and then after that, that whole thing is the subject, you have the main verb, which is would be. Okay, so if it's at the beginning of the sentence and it's not followed by a comma, then most likely the gerund phrase is being used as a subject. Okay, then you have the gerund as the direct object, like in this sentence. I hope that you appreciate my offering you this opportunity. So I hope you is the subject of the dependent clause here. Appreciate is the verb. You appreciate what? My offering you this opportunity. So it answers what after an action verb. So this one's a little bit different because the first word is not the gerund. My is the first word, and it's a possessive pronoun that's modifying the gerund, so you include it. And I'm just explaining this to you. Don't get overwhelmed. You don't have to be able to know that my is a possessive pronoun modifying the gerund, okay? The ones that we do in class will mostly just start with the gerund. So anyway, also in this gerund phrase, you have offering, which is a gerund, you, which is the indirect object, and then you have this opportunity, which is the direct object, okay? And hopefully I don't need to go into detail explaining those, as we've already been talking about direct objects and indirect objects for at least a month now. Okay, you can also have a gerund as a predicate nominative, which is another type of noun. Tom's favorite activity has been what? So it follows a linking verb and answers what? Has been debating the meaning of life with his classmates. And this gerund phrase consists of debating, which is the gerund, the meaning of life, which is the direct object, and with his classmates, which is a prepositional phrase. Okay, and you can also have a gerund functioning as the object of the preposition. Here's an example. You might get in trouble for faking an illness to avoid work. Now, you would notice that for is a preposition, and the gerund is a noun. So, because a prepositional phrase consists of preposition followed by a noun, which is the object of a preposition, this is how you would use a gerund as the object of a preposition. So faking is the gerund, and illness is a direct object, and to avoid work is an infinitive phrase, and all of those together make the gerund phrase, which is a noun, which in this case is functioning as the object of the preposition. Okay, so for once, when we're talking about punctuation, this rule is fairly easy to remember. Gerunds and gerund phrases virtually never require punctuation because of how they function in a sentence. As a noun, they are very important. You can't take a gerund phrase out of the sentence because then the sentence wouldn't make sense. And a lot of times when you're using commas, it's because something can be taken out of the sentence. It's non-essential information. Most gerunds are essential and you have to have them. Okay, and just a quick review. We talked about infinitives with prepositional phrases, but we didn't talk about them specifically as verbals. So an infinitive is a verbal that appears with the word to and acts as a noun, adjective, or adverb, which we already talked about. So for example, I like what? To debate. So that is functioning as a direct object. To play with matches is wrong. Here it's the subject. She is eager to do the extra credit. Okay, she is eager to do the extra credit. So that's just a recap of infinitives. And then I want you just to practice a little bit. Identify the verbals in the following sentences and identify them as participle, a gerund, or an infinitive. Those are the three types of verbals. Okay, so first, find the verbal. Then decide if it's a participle, meaning it's functioning as an adjective, a gerund, meaning it's functioning as a noun, or an infinitive, meaning it's functioning as a noun, adjective, or adverb. Okay, so meditating on positive ideas brings great physical health. The explorers struggled to find the remote colony, and the heated pool is great for sore muscles. So you need to pause the video and see if you can figure these out. And then when you're ready, press play. Okay, and here are the answers. Hopefully you stretched yourself and tried to figure them out on your own before looking at the answers. So the first sentence, meditating on positive ideas, is the subject. The second sentence, to find, obviously if it starts with to, it's going to be an infinitive if it's followed by a verb, which it is. So infinitive in number 2. And then heated is a verb, but it's not acting as a verb, it's acting as an adjective describing pool. So heated is a participle. And going back to number 1, I said meditating on positive ideas is a noun, it's the subject of the sentence, so obviously it's a gerund.